The guards dragged Jake through the dark hallways of the prison. His hands were bound behind his back with metal chains. His face was covered in dirt and dried blood. He looked like a man who had lost everything. But looks can be wrong. The soldiers were tall creatures. They stood over 7 feet high with scales covering their bodies like armor. Their eyes were yellow and cold like a snake. They did not speak to Jake. To them, he was nothing more than food for their prisoner below. Jake kept his head down as they walked. He counted the steps. He memorized every turn. He noted where the guards stood and what weapons they carried. His mind was sharp even though his body looked broken. 3 years. That is how long Earth had been searching for this place. 3 years of whispers and rumors about a creature held in the deepest part of the prison on a moon called Seven. A creature that could change the war between humans and the Empire. Jake was not a smuggler like they believed. He was not a simple criminal caught in the wrong place. He was a trained agent of Earth's galactic resistance, and he had let himself be captured on purpose. The hallways grew hotter as they went deeper into the prison. The walls changed from metal to black stone. Orange light came from cracks in the floor where lava flowed far below. The air smelled like burning rocks and something else, something alive and ancient. Commander walked in front of the group. He was the leader of this prison, a warlord known for his cruelty. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and scars covered his face from many battles. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. "You humans are everywhere like insects," said without looking back. "You spread across the galaxy even though you are weak, even though you die so easily." Jake said nothing. He had learned to stay quiet during his training. Words could wait. "But you serve a purpose now," continued. "Our guest below needs to eat. Live food keeps her calm, and your death will be broadcast to every human colony as a warning." They reached a massive door made of black metal. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. 2 guards stood on each side, holding weapons that glowed with blue energy. They looked afraid even though they were armed. Placed his clawed hand on a panel beside the door. It scanned his palm, and the door began to open slowly. The heat that came out was intense. Jake felt his skin burn just from standing near the opening. "The dragon," said with a cruel smile. "The last of her kind. We killed the rest centuries ago. They were too dangerous to let live, but she is useful as a tool of fear." Jake looked through the door into the darkness beyond. He could see a cavern carved from volcanic rock. Red light glowed from pools of lava at the bottom, and somewhere in that darkness, something very large was breathing. "Walk," ordered. A guard pushed Jake forward. He stumbled but did not fall. He walked through the door with steady steps even though every part of his body screamed at him to run. The door closed behind him with a sound like thunder. Jake stood still and let his eyes adjust to the darkness. The heat was almost too much to bear. Normal humans would have collapsed within minutes in this temperature, but Jake was not normal anymore. Before this mission, doctors had injected him with a special compound. It was made from genetic material recovered from dead dragons found on a destroyed world. The compound changed his blood and made him able to survive heat that would kill others. It also made something else possible, something that had not happened in over 200 years. 2 enormous eyes opened in the darkness ahead of him. Each eye was bigger than a car. They burned with orange and gold light like twin suns. Jake could feel the intelligence behind those eyes, old intelligence, sad intelligence, angry intelligence. The dragon moved, and Jake saw her full form for the first time. She was massive, at least 40 meters long. Her scales shifted colors between deep purple and burning gold as the light touched them. Her wings were folded against her body, but Jake could tell they were huge. Her claws were as long as swords, and her teeth could crush metal. She was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Jake had ever seen. "Another one," a voice said inside his head. It was not a sound. It was a thought placed directly into his mind. They send me another sacrifice. You are the 47th. Jake did not run. He did not scream. He stood his ground even though his heart was beating fast. I will not eat you, the voice continued with great sadness. I do not wish to kill, but my heat will end your life soon enough. Already your skin blisters. Already your lungs struggle. In minutes you will fall. In an hour there will be nothing left but bones. Jake took a deep breath of the burning air. His skin was red and painful, but he was not dying. The compound was working. His body was adjusting to the heat that should have killed him. I am not here to die, Jake said out loud. His voice was calm and clear. The dragon's eyes narrowed. She moved closer, her massive head coming within meters of where Jake stood. He could feel her breath like standing in front of a furnace. You should be dead already, she said in his mind. There was surprise in her thoughts now. No creature survives my presence this long. What are you? Jake reached into his prison shirt. The guards had searched him but found nothing dangerous. They had ignored the small crystal pendant around his neck, thinking it was worthless decoration. He pulled out the pendant and held it up. It began to glow with inner fire as soon as the dragon looked at it. The great creature went completely still. Where did you find that? Her mental voice was barely a whisper now. On a dead world far from here, Jake said. It belonged to the last rider. A human explorer found it among the ruins and brought it back to Earth. We have been searching for you ever since. The dragon pulled back as if struck. She had not heard her true name spoken in 200 years. They called her beast or monster or simply the dragon. Her real name had been lost with her people. How do you know my name? She demanded. Jake lowered the pendant but kept it visible. Because we never stopped looking. Because humans do not forget our friends, even friends we have never met. And because I am here to set you free. For a long moment, the dragon simply stared at him. Then, for the first time in 2 centuries, something like hope sparked in her ancient heart. Circled Jake slowly. Her massive body moved with grace despite her size. Each step shook the ground beneath his feet. Her eyes never left him, studying him like a puzzle she could not solve. You should be ash by now, she said in his mind. Every creature they have thrown into this cell has died within minutes. The heat of my body alone is enough to kill, yet you stand here talking to me. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. His skin was red and painful, but he was alive. The compound in his blood was doing its work, changing how his body dealt with extreme heat. My people found remains of your kind on a world called, Jake explained. They destroyed everything there, but some things survived buried deep underground. Our scientists studied what they found. They created something that lets me survive near you. Lowered her great head until it was level with Jake. Up close, he could see the details of her face. Her scales were not just purple and gold. They had patterns in them like flames frozen in time. Her eyes held depths of intelligence and memory that made Jake feel very young and very small. They killed everyone on, said. Her mental voice carried old pain. That was my family died there, my mate, my children who had just learned to fly. I am sorry, Jake said softly. Sorry? The dragon made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. 46 creatures have died in this cell. 46 lives ended because they use me as their weapon. They broadcast my kills across the galaxy to spread fear. They have turned me into the monster they always claimed I was. Jake held up the crystal pendant again. This belonged to someone who rode with your kind, a partner. Before your people had allies who fought beside them. His eyes locked onto the pendant. Memories moved behind those burning eyes. Old memories from a time before the war, before the hunting, before the long centuries of captivity. She whispered. They were our bonded partners. When we joined minds with them, we became something greater than either species alone. They could direct our fire with their thoughts. We could share our strength with them. Together, We protected the weak across many worlds. What happened to them? The happened, pulled back and turned away. Her tail swept across the stone floor. The Empire feared what we could do together. They could not defeat us in open battle, so they used tricks and lies. They turned other races against the. They spread disease among their worlds. When they were weak and few, they came with their armies and finished what they had started. Jake listened in silence. He had read reports about the dragons and their partners, but hearing it from made it real in a way no report could. After the fell, the hunted us, continued. We tried to hide, we tried to fight, but we were not warriors without our partners. We were just big creatures with fire. One by one, my people were killed. I was captured 200 years ago. I have been here ever since. Why did they keep you alive? Turned back to face him. There was shame in her eyes now. Because they found my weakness. During the final battle where I was captured, they discovered eggs that had not yet hatched. They took them and put them in a vault somewhere in this prison. They keep them frozen in time, not alive but not dead either. Jake understood now. They threaten to destroy the eggs if you do not obey. Yes, the word was heavy with pain. So I kill for them. I burn creatures they throw into my cell. I am the monster in their broadcasts, and every day I hate myself more. But I cannot let my children die. They are the last hope for my kind. Jake stepped closer to the dragon. The heat was intense, but he pushed through it. What if I told you we could save them? What if we could free you and rescue the eggs? Stared at him for a long moment. Many have made promises in this cell. All of them died before they could keep them. I am different. Jake held up his hand and showed her the faint golden glow that was starting to appear in his veins. The compound they gave me was not just to survive the heat. It was made from blood. It makes a bond possible between us. The dragon went very still. A bond, like my people had with the. We think so. Our scientists were not certain. No one has tried it in 200 years, but I volunteered for this mission because I believe it can work. I believe that together we can do what neither of us could do alone. Studied him with new eyes. She reached out with her mind, touching his thoughts carefully. Jake felt her presence like warmth spreading through his brain. She saw his memories of Earth. She saw his training. She saw the hope that humans carried for ending the threat. She also saw his fear. He was terrified. He just refused to let that fear control him. You are brave for a creature so small, said. Humans have to be brave, Jake replied. We cannot breathe fire or fly. We do not have scales or claws. All we have is our minds and our refusal to give up. Something changed in that moment. The careful wall that had built around her heart over 2 centuries began to crack. She had believed she would die in this cell, alone and hated. She had accepted that her kind would end with her. But here was this strange little creature who should be dead, holding a relic of her lost partners, offering hope. The bond is not a small thing, warned. If we join our minds, we will share everything. My pain will become yours. Your death will wound me deeply. We will be connected until one of us dies. Jake nodded. I understand. Do you? I have lived for 600 years. I have watched everyone I loved die. I have killed innocents because I was too weak to let my children go. Do you truly want to carry that weight? I want to help you carry it, Jake said simply. That is what partners do. Closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they burned brighter than before. She lowered her head and pressed her forehead against Jake's chest. The heat should have killed him. Instead, it flowed into him like warm water. The bond began. Jake gasped as his mind merged with his own. He saw everything. He felt everything. 600 years of memories poured into him like a river, joy and loss, love and hatred, the beauty of flying through clouds and the horror of watching her family burn. He screamed, but not from pain. He screamed because no human had ever felt so much at once. When it was over, he fell to his knees, caught him gently with her massive claw, holding him up. "It is done," she said, but now her voice was not just in his mind. It was part of him. They were connected in ways that words could not describe. Jake looked up at her with eyes that now carried a faint golden glow. "Then, let us begin planning our escape." For the first time in 200 years, smiled. It was a terrifying sight, all those teeth, but Jake saw the joy behind it. "Yes," she agreed. "Let us show the what happens when they cage a dragon and her partner." Days passed in the cell beneath the prison. To the guards who watched through cameras, nothing had changed. The humans sat in one corner while the dragon rested in another. They seemed to ignore each other like all the other sacrifices before. The guards did not know that Jake and spent every moment talking through their bond. They shared memories and made plans. They learned everything about each other without speaking a single word out loud. Through his eyes, Jake saw the full layout of the prison. Over 2 centuries, she had listened to guards talking outside her door. She had felt vibrations through the stone when ships landed. She knew where the armory was, where the control room was, and most importantly, where the vault holding her eggs was located. Through Jake's mind, learned about humanity. She saw their cities and their ships. She learned about their history of war and peace. She understood why they fought against the Empire even though they were younger and weaker than many other species in the galaxy. "Your kind is strange," admitted one night as lava bubbled far below them. "You have only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. You are like children compared to the old races, yet you refuse to kneel before the Empire." "We tried peace first," Jake replied through their link. "We sent ambassadors. We offered trade and friendship. They burned our first 3 colony worlds and took our people as slaves. After that, we decided peace was not possible with them. Most species accept defeat when they face such power. They bow and hope to survive." Jake smiled grimly. "Humans are not good at bowing. It is one of our few strengths and also one of our greatest weaknesses." Found this amusing, pride from such small creatures. Not pride, stubbornness, there is a difference. Their planning was interrupted by sounds from the cell next to his chamber. Someone was being thrown inside. Jake heard shouting and the sound of fists hitting flesh. "Another prisoner," said. "The cells around mine are used for those waiting to be executed. They keep them close so they can hear my victims scream. It breaks their spirit before their turn comes." Jake moved toward the wall that separated the cells. Through his bond with, he could extend his senses in ways that should have been impossible. He focused and felt the presence on the other side. It was human. "Hello," Jake called out. "Can you hear me?" There was silence for a moment. Then a woman's voice answered, rough and tired. "I hear you. How are you still alive in there? The dragon should have killed you days ago." "It is a long story. What is your name?" "I was a pilot before they caught me. My ship was running supplies to resistance fighters on the outer colonies. They captured me 3 weeks ago." Jake pressed his hand against the wall. "I am Jake, and the dragon's name is We Are Not Enemies." Laughed bitterly. "The dragon that kills prisoners on broadcast is your friend. Did the heat cook your brain?" "She kills because they force her to. They hold her children hostage, eggs that could still hatch if freed." There was a long pause. When spoke again, her voice was different, less angry, more curious. "You are serious." "Very serious. And I have a plan to get us all out of here, but I need help. There are things I cannot do from inside this cell." Moved closer to the wall on her side. "I am listening." Jake explained enough of the plan to show her it was real. He told her about the bond with, about the resistance forces waiting in the asteroid belt, about the signal he needed to send at the right moment. "You are insane," said when he finished. "This plan has 100 ways to fail. Name one that we cannot work around." Was quiet for a while, then she laughed again, but this time it was genuine. "I was going to die anyway. Might as well die trying something crazy. What do you need from me?" over the next several days became their eyes and ears outside the cell. The guards took her out for questioning sessions, trying to learn about resistance operations. She told them nothing useful, but she watched everything. She memorized guard rotations. She noted which doors had weak locks. She even managed to steal a small tool from a distracted guard. Through the wall, she reported everything to Jake. Through the bond, Jake shared it all with. Their plan grew more detailed with each passing day. "The control room has only 4 guards at night," reported. 2 at the door, 2 inside. The door locks can be broken with enough force. "Force we have," replied through Jake. "What of the vault?" "Sublevel 7, heavy security, biometric locks that need Commander himself to open." Jake frowned. "Then we need." "He comes to the dragon's cell for every execution," said. "He likes to watch." "The next execution is in 6 days," added. "They will throw someone new into my cell, probably another prisoner from the cells nearby." Jake thought about this. "Then we move on execution day. When comes down here, we take him. We use him to open the vault." "And the other prisoners?" asked. "There are thousands of beings in this prison from dozens of worlds. Most hate thee as much as we do." "We free them all. We give them weapons from the armory. We turn this prison into a battlefield." Whistled softly. "You really are insane. I like it." That night, Jake sent a message through. The dragon's body produced a unique energy that they had never understood. By shaping that energy with his thoughts through their bond, Jake could create signals that traveled through space faster than light. Lieutenant Amy Grant received the signal on her stealth ship hidden among the asteroids. She had been waiting for weeks, watching the prison moon from a safe distance. When the coded message arrived, she smiled and began preparing her crew. "The dragon has been woken," she said to her team. "In 6 days we light the fire." Back in the cell, Jake sat beside. Through their bond, he felt her mix of hope and fear. She had been disappointed so many times. She had watched so many plans fail. "What if it does not work?" she asked him. "What if they destroy the eggs before we reach them?" Jake placed his hand on her scaled neck. The heat that once would have burned him now felt like warmth from a fireplace. "Then we die trying. But I promise you, I will not stop fighting until those eggs are safe or until my heart stops beating." Closed her enormous eyes. Through the bond, Jake felt her trust settling into place like a key fitting into a lock. She had been alone for so long, fighting alone, suffering alone. Now she had a partner again. 6 days, she said. 6 days, Jake agreed. And then they will learn why they should have let sleeping dragons lie. The 6th day arrived like any other in the prison on 7. Guards patrolled the halls. Prisoners sat in their cells waiting for death. The air was thick with despair and the smell of burning rock. But beneath the surface, everything was about to change. Jake stood in the center of his chamber. His body had changed over the past days. The bond with the dragon had altered him in ways the scientists on Earth had not predicted. His skin had a faint golden color now. His eyes glowed slightly in the dark. He could feel heat and flame as clearly as a normal person could feel wind and rain. He was no longer fully human. He was something new. "They are coming," said through their bond. She could feel the vibrations of many feet approaching through the stone. Jake nodded. "Remember, we wait until he's inside. We need him alive." The massive door to the chamber began to open. Bright light flooded in from the corridor. Jake shielded his eyes and saw a group of figures entering. Commander walked at the front, his black scales gleaming in the firelight from below. Behind him came a dozen nobles, dressed in fine robes and carrying recording devices. They wanted to capture the execution in detail. Behind the nobles marched 20 armed guards. And in the center of them all, bound in chains, walked a young alien. She was from a species Jake did not recognize, with blue skin and 4 arms. She looked barely old enough to be an adult. Her eyes were wide with terror. "Another glorious day," announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Another enemy of the Empire fed to our beast. Let all who watch this broadcast remember the price of defiance." Jake stepped forward where everyone could see him. The nobles gasped. The guards raised their weapons, even looked surprised. "The human still lives," one noble hissed. "How is this possible?" Narrowed his yellow eyes. He stared at Jake, then back at Jake. Understanding slowly dawned on his face. "What have you done, little creature?" Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I made a friend." Rose to her full height behind him. The nobles screamed and stumbled backward. The guards tried to form a defensive line, but they were shaking with fear. 200 years, said out loud. Her voice was like thunder rolling through mountains. 200 years you have kept me caged. You threatened my children. You forced me to kill innocents. You turned me into your weapon of terror. Held up his hand. "If you kill us, your eggs will be destroyed. I have given orders." "Your orders mean nothing now," Jake said. "Your communication systems went dark 10 minutes ago. Your guards in the vault are already dead. A human strike team reached them through the old lava tunnels you thought were blocked." Looked confused. "That is impossible. No one knew about those tunnels." "Knew? She has been listening to your conversations for 2 centuries. She knows this prison better than you do." At that moment, every door in the prison opened at once. Had reached the control room. The guards there had not expected a prisoner to be free, and they had not expected her to be carrying a weapon stolen from a dead guard on level 3. Alarms began to scream throughout the complex. "What is happening?" a noble shouted. "Revolution," Jake answered. Opened her mouth and released a blast of white-hot flame. Not orange, not red, white. The fire of a true dragon with a bonded partner directing her power. The flames swept past Jake without touching him. They wrapped around the guards and nobles but avoided the chained prisoner in the middle. In seconds, every accept was reduced to ash. The young alien fell to her knees, freed from her captors, staring at Jake with shock and wonder. "Go," Jake told her. "Follow the other prisoners to the upper levels. Find weapons, fight back." She ran without looking back. Stood alone now. His guards were gone. His nobles were gone. His power meant nothing in this chamber of fire and rage. "You will die for this," he snarled. "The Empire will send fleets. They will turn this moon to dust." "Perhaps," said, "but you will not live to see it. Not unless you do exactly what we say." Jake walked toward the commander. "You are going to take us to the vault. You are going to open the door. And then you are going to watch as I rescue the children you have used as hostages for 200 years. And if I refuse?" Lowered her head until her jaws were inches from. "Then I will burn you slowly. I will start with your feet and work my way up over many hours. You have watched me kill 46 beings in this cell, Commander. You know what I am capable of." Looked into those burning eyes. He saw no mercy there, no hesitation, only centuries of fury waiting to be released. "Very well," he said quietly. "I will take you to the vault." Throughout the prison, chaos erupted. Thousands of prisoners flooded the corridors. Some had been here for years. Some had been here for days. All of them had suffered under cruelty, and all of them wanted revenge. Directed them through the speaker system in the control room. Armory is on level 5. Medical supplies on level 3. All guards are ordered to surrender or die. The guards tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered 100 to 1. Prisoners from a dozen different species worked together, sharing weapons, watching each other's backs. For one brief moment, the hatred between different races was forgotten. They had a common enemy. Jake rode on's back as she crashed through corridor after corridor, heading for sub-level 7. Hung in her claws, terrified but still alive. They needed him. Guards tried to stop them. They lasted seconds against flame. Doors tried to block them. The dragon simply tore through the metal like paper. Lieutenant Amy Grant's strike team met them outside the vault. They had entered through the tunnels and secured the area, but the vault door remained sealed. "Good to see you alive, Agent," Amy said with a grin. "Nice dragon." "Thanks, she thinks you are too small to be worth eating." "I am going to take that as a compliment." Jake dropped in front of the vault door. "Open it." The commander hesitated. Jake felt some patience through their bond. "Every second you delay," Jake said calmly, "she gets angrier. You really do not want to see her angry." Placed his hand on the scanner. The door recognized his biometrics and began to open with a deep mechanical sound. Inside, the vault was cold. Frost covered the walls. In the center of the room, on a raised platform, sat 12 large eggs. Each one glowed faintly with inner fire, even frozen as they were. Made a sound that Jake had never heard before. It was not a roar or a growl. It was something softer, something like a mother seeing her children for the first time in forever. "They are alive," she whispered through their bond. "After all this time, they are still alive." Jake felt tears in his eyes, not his own tears. Emotions flowing through him were too strong to contain. "Let us get them out of here," he said. "It is time to go home." The liberation of 7 took less than 12 hours. By morning, the prison that had held thousands of beings in misery was in the hands of the prisoners themselves. Bodies of guards littered the corridors. Some had surrendered and were now locked in the cells that had once held their victims. Others had fought to the end and paid the price. Jake stood on the landing platform outside the prison, watching the sun rise over the volcanic landscape. The air still smelled of smoke and blood, but there was something else now, something that felt like freedom. Rested beside him, her massive form curled around a thermal container that held her 12 eggs. The container had been built by human engineers specifically for this mission. It kept the eggs at exactly the right temperature, the warmth they needed to finally begin waking up after 2 centuries of frozen sleep. "How long until they hatch?" Jake asked. "Weeks, perhaps months. They have been asleep for so long, but they will wake. I can feel them stirring even now." Jake placed his hand on the container, and through his bond with, he felt them too. 12 small lives, not yet aware of the world they would enter. They would never know the suffering their mother had endured to keep them safe. They would only know that she had never given up on them. Approached from the prison entrance. She had changed in the days since Jake had first spoken to her through the cell wall. There was fire in her eyes now, purpose. She had been a pilot before her capture. Now she was something more. "The captured warship is ready," she reported. "Prisoners are already boarding. We have enough room for everyone who wants to leave. And those who want to stay." Smiled grimly. "About 1,000 beings have chosen to remain here. They want to turn this prison into a fortress, a base for resistance operations in this sector." Jake nodded. It made sense. The prison had defenses, weapons, supplies. It could become a symbol of hope instead of a symbol of fear. "What about Commander?" "Locked in the deepest cell. The one where they used to put prisoners before feeding them too. He screams a lot, but no one listens." Through the bond, Jake felt satisfaction. It was not a kind emotion, but it was understandable. After 200 years of torment, watching her captor suffer brought her some peace. "You should kill him," said through their connection. "He deserves death." "Perhaps, but alive, he is a bargaining chip. The Empire will think twice about attacking this moon if we have their commander." "You think like a leader." "I think like a human. We plan for all possibilities." Lieutenant Amy Grant's ship landed nearby. Her crew began loading supplies and helping wounded prisoners board for evacuation. Amy herself walked over to Jake with a data tablet in her hand. "The broadcast worked," she said, showing him the screen. "Your signal was picked up by every relay station in this sector. Everyone saw what happened here. A human bonded with a dragon. Prisoners rising up against their captors. the mighty defeated by people they considered worthless. Jake watched the footage playing on the screen. He saw himself riding through the prison corridors. He saw directing the uprising from the control room. He saw prisoners of different species fighting side by side. "How are they reacting?" he asked. Amy's smile grew wider. "Rebellion has broken out on 4 other prison worlds. Slave colonies are rising up. Commanders are suddenly finding that their subjects are not as afraid as they used to be. Because of us. Because you showed them it was possible. Hope is contagious, Jake. One spark can light 1,000 fires." Lifted her great head and looked toward the sky. Somewhere beyond the clouds, beyond the atmosphere, fleets would be gathering. They would come for revenge. They would bring all their might against this small moon. "They will not forgive this," she said. "The Empire will hunt us across the galaxy." Jake turned to face her. Through their bond, she felt his determination, his refusal to surrender, his strange human confidence that somehow, someway, they would find a path forward. "Then we give them something bigger to worry about," he said. "We take the fight to them." The warship that had captured was renamed that afternoon. The prisoners voted on it, and the choice was unanimous. They called it the Kindled Hope. It was the first ship of what would become a fleet. Jake did not board that ship. They had a different destination. Earth. The journey through hyperspace took several days. Jake spent most of that time talking with, sharing more memories, strengthening their bond. He told her about human history, the wars they had fought among themselves, the peace they had struggled to build, the moment they had reached the stars and discovered they were not alone. Told him about the dragons, their ancient traditions, their bond with the long golden age when they had been protectors of the weak and defenders of justice. "We were not warriors by nature," she admitted. "We only became fighters when we had to be. That taught us that some things were worth burning for. And now I have you, a human partner, something I never expected." She paused, and Jake felt her emotions shifting through their bond. "Your kind is young and reckless. You make mistakes. You rush into danger without thinking." Those sound like complaints. They are observations, but there is something else about humanity, something I did not see until I looked through your memories. "What is that?" "You care, not just about yourselves but about others. You see suffering and you want to fix it. You see injustice and you want to fight it, even when it costs you everything, even when it would be easier to look away." Jake said nothing. He was not sure how to respond. "They were the same," continued. "That is why we bonded with them. That is why I bonded with you, because in you I see the spirit of my old partners reborn in a new form." Earth appeared before them, blue and green and white, beautiful in a way that only home can be. Ships came to escort them in, not warships. These were civilian vessels, news cameras, people who had heard what happened on 7 and wanted to see the dragon for themselves. Was nervous. Jake could feel it through their bond. She had not been seen by anyone except enemies and victims for 2 centuries. The idea of being welcomed instead of feared was strange to her. "They will accept you," Jake promised. "I know my people. They will see you as a hero." "I do not feel like a hero. I feel like a monster who was finally given a chance to be something else." "That is what makes you a hero. You had every reason to give up, every reason to hate. Instead, you chose hope." They landed on a platform outside the Galactic Resistance headquarters. Thousands of people had gathered to watch. When emerged from the ship, carrying her container of eggs, there was a moment of silence. Then someone started clapping. The applause spread like wildfire. People cheered. People cried. People called out thanks and blessings in a dozen different languages. Stood frozen, overwhelmed by emotions she had not felt in so long. Joy, gratitude, belonging. Jake walked beside her, his hand resting on her scaled neck. "Welcome home," he said. "I have never been to Earth before." "Home is not a place," Jake replied. "Home is where you are not alone anymore." The war against the Empire was far from over. There would be battles ahead, losses, sacrifice. The Empire would not fall easily. But standing there, surrounded by cheering humans, understood something important. She was not fighting alone anymore. She had a partner. She had a family. And when humans decide something is family, they protect it with everything they have. They had made a terrible mistake when they threw Jake into that cell. They thought they were feeding the dragon another sacrifice. Instead, they had given her a reason to fight again. And together, the dragon and her human would make the Empire burn.